So, what would Maggie have done, I am often asked. I say it is a bit presumptuous to assert what a Prime Minister who left office 32 years ago, and has been dead and buried for nearly 10, would now do in given circumstances. All you can do is look at her nature, formed in strict, non-conformist Grantham, convictions and record. They could not be more different than Boris Johnson and his approach to life and money. It is essentially the same as his reputed collection of wads of parking tickets as a journalist. Let us start with Mrs. Thatcher's first budget in 1979. It announced a complete change from the previously governing Keynesian approach to monetarism with its emphasis on controlling inflation. And don't forget that the 1979 economy was in ruins after 20 years of trade union abuse of power and the winter of discontent. Inflation was running at 12.5%, interest rates at 17% and unemployment at 5.6% and rising rapidly. People under the age of 60 don't know they are born. That first budget raised VAT from 8 or 12.5% to a standard 15%, more than doubled prescription charges to 45p and cut spending. But the rate of tax was cut from 33 to 30% and the top rate from 83 to 60%. Then in 1981 there were more spending cuts, increases in indirect taxation and, to be fair, windfall taxes on bank profits and North Sea oil. That was about all those early Thatcher-defining budgets had in common with Chancellor Rishi Sunak's effort last week. No wonder that the wets in her party were after her head. But she stood firm and later wrote that her medium-term financial strategy, MTFS, would only influence expectations if people believed the government was going to persevere. A year later unemployment peaked at 13% or over 3 meters, the worst for 60 years, but by 1986 inflation was down to 3% before the next Chancellor Nigel Lawson lost control by secretly shadowing the D-mark in his newfound enthusiasm for European monetary control. Lawson's private enterprise damaged the economy. Sad to relate, inflation was running at 6.9% when she left office, interest rates at 13.8%, with unemployment back to where they started in 1979 at around 6%. But, crucially, Britain was no longer seen as the sick man of Europe. Against that background, I think we can safely say that Boris Johnson's management of an economy ravaged by the COVID pandemic and now the Ukraine invasion would have made the immaculately coiffured Mrs. Thatcher go bald. You would not think that last year the budget deficit reached a record £316 billion, or 14.8% of GDP, roughly equivalent to a debt of £4,300 per head of population. Nor would you believe that our soaring national debt is forecast to hit £2.3 trillion, £1,000 billion, next year. It is true that the Chancellor expects to offset last week's £21 billion extra spending by £5 billion from the windfall taxes. But where is the sense in protecting not just the worst off from the cost of living crisis but also second homeowners who will be entitled to $2 of cash we don't have? I simply cannot believe last week's budget was made in the Treasury. It smacks of Boris Johnson's macabre approach to finance. How are we to get the economy back on an even keel and ensure the country can cope with future emergencies? Yet while some Tory MPs are gunning for the PM, others cheered last week's budget measures. This illustrates the utter confusion at the heart of the Tory party. It is all very well protecting the worst off from soaring prices, but the next election is only 2 years away and we are no wiser how the government proposes to restore the economy. They cannot do it by piling debt upon debt. Yet that is exactly what they are doing. Boris Johnson's handling of Brexit, the pandemic and the Ukraine are generally to his credit. But he sorely lacks the financial discipline of Mrs. Thatcher. Without it we are on our way to ruin.